What's up, Starcraft fans? Last time we did how to play Kerrigan as level 1, with focusing mostly on continuing to build stuff and use your abilities. Now we're gonna go to Artanis level 1, which in some ways is more painful because he has no hero unit to anchor his forces, but we'll see what happens. So, yeah, I'll place level 1 Artanis so that he doesn't have any of his primary upgrades yet. His most impactful ones probably... well, his number one most impactful one is definitely Garden Shell. At low levels, Garden Shell is kind of your crutch, especially if you don't have a third prestige. I'll play this game as if I have no prestiges, so I won't have Garden Shell either, which is one of the best upgrades. Twilight Council upgrade cache, one of the better ones. Templar Archive is one of my favorite upgrades for Artanis level 6. Yeah, I would consider this a pretty good power spike, but only if you know how to micro spellcasters. If not, this one's completely useless to you. Reaver would be useful. Warp Harmonization, that's pretty good. You can deploy your warriors up front. Solar Bombardment, definitely one of the most powerful top bars you can have. And it's one of the ones that Artanis really want in this Beardune to be competitive. And then the last impact was probably the Glory of the Day Lum. The pylons cost a lot in this game and will actually hamper the horses you can field. Whereas in a normal game, at level 15 Artanis, you can field a high-tech army of like High Templar, Reavers, Tempests, and stuff. In sub-mastery Artanis, it's going to be more expensive just because you have to build a lot of pylons. So anyway, we're going to once again go into a replay because it's easier to commentate from there. And we'll be on Rifts to Korhal, where we destroy 10 Void Shards on the map. Each set of Void Shards we destroy adds timer before we lose the game, and spawns the rest of the shards. So, thank you to Legendary Sinner, who is supporting me in the Immobilization Wave tier, and Darth and Shadow Archon, who are supporting me in the Pulse Cannon tier. And thank you to all my supporters on Patreon. Yeah, this is a replay. We'll see what happens. Now, Artanis is one of the weakest commanders out there, and Rifts to Korhal on brutal difficulty has the earliest attack wave at 2 minutes. The next earliest will be, well, I think a few-way tie between Void Launch and some other maps at 3 minutes. But yeah, on this map you have a 4-minute first attack wave, so you have to build up pretty early. So you see what I did. I started the pile at 14 supply. But instead of you see me usually going for a probe at 15 supply, just so I can continue building. But since this pylon is not completed, we're sub level 15, so we won't have this complete. I choose to spend my money instead to invest in a gateway, and you notice the formation of my buildings. You will see later on, but there's a 1 square gap between these, and that's gonna be important for me in defending the first wave. You don't have to do this if you have an ally, but if you can't rely on your ally, and this is the map you're fighting on, you want to have basically a couple of buildings to make a corridor into your base. And what you want to do is filter the enemy through the corridor. If it's ranged enemies, you have to like make sure to bait them all the way into the choke point, so that you can have a larger concave of forces behind them. But this one is Zerg. You can see there's creep over here, which means they'll be sending Zerglings, most likely. Like, I think 6 times out of 7 they'll be sending Zerglings. So what you want to do is, like, have a Zealot in the corridor, and that will force the Zerglings to funnel through and allow your Zealot inside to have a 1v1 fight a few times. It's way more advantageous because the Zealot is only going to hit 1 time per Zergling, and each Zergling, and the Zerglings can't get a surround. The surround is very important for the Zerglings because that will allow them to hit many times at once on their enemies. Like, I think if you get a surround, there's a lot, that's like 6 Zerglings attack all at the same time or something like that. So that's 6 times the damage. So your Zealot dies immediately. But if you have this choke point set up, the Zealot will be able to hold on for much longer, and you'll actually gain a much more advantageous fight. You can see I have just constant worker production. It's the same lesson as low level Kerrigan. You just have to have constant production of stuff. And as I mentioned previously, it's still true for Artanis. What sets good players apart from bad players is not clicking fast. If you haven't gotten that in your head yet, you need to realize that it's not clicking fast that sets the good players from the bad players. Clicking fast sets the best players from the great players. That's what clicking fast sets apart. At our level, what sets people apart from each other is remembering what to do. So all you have to do is really remember that once your gateway completes, you want to tech up as fast as possible. So what you have to remember, once the gateway completes, you have to start your cybernetics core because you want to tech up to either Dragoons, High Templar, Immortals, Reavers, Tempests, once you're at level 15. But at level 1, your only choice, kind of, is to go for Dragoons. They are the only unit that Artanis has that is relatively usable at level 1. So you can see the corridor is kind of visible now. The Zealot is blocking the way. If you were going up against a real person, if this were 1v1, this is not a wall, obviously, because the Zerglings can run right through and destroy your allies' workers or your workers. But this is co-op, so the AI is derpy, and they will kind of try to force their way through this corridor and fight this Zealot, who is attacking them. But you will see later on the effect of the corridor that I've created. It will actually funnel the Zerglings in and allow the Zealot to have 1v1 combat versus Zerglings, and that's what the Zealot shines at. You can see I already have 2 Zealots in here, so in case the first one falls, I have the second one, but that's not even relevant because you can see that I am ready to take the next fight. You can see that, by the way, in case you're interested in the build order, I wouldn't really focus on build orders if I were you guys. The general ideas, if you're level 1 and you're just starting out as a player, I wouldn't focus on build orders because build orders require more knowledge of timings in the game and more knowledge of the enemies that you have, and really a build order can only really be gotten once you have the basic concept down. And the basic concept, of course, is just build whatever you have money to build. That is the backbone of every build order, and every decent Starcraft player has this in the back of their minds. Build stuff when you have money for it. So you can see the Zerglings will try to funnel in through here, but yeah, that is my advantage. How many Zerglings are these? These are like 4, 8, 12, let's say 24 Zerglings. So you can see them funneling through this a lot, but I have Orbital Strike, and you can see this one Orbital Strike hits almost all of them. You can see that just 2 Orbital Strikes are all I need to destroy this entire attack wave, just because the Zerglings try to funnel themselves into this this corridor to fight this one Zealot. And you can see that I only needed 2 and the attacker is gone. So I kind of just used all 3 to hit nothing because I made a mistake here. My mistake was obviously that I had 2 Zealots here. This one Zealot should have been fighting the rocks. So I could use the 3 Orbital Strikes on these rocks instead, but it doesn't matter because the important thing is deflecting the first wave, and this Zealot didn't even take half shield damage. You can see he started at 50 shields, he's down to 26, and he still has more than half. That entire attack of 25 Zerglings died without even dealing half the shield health of this one Zealot. So, what led to that result? By all accounts, 25 Zerglings should absolutely be able to take down one Zealot, but what really happened is the smart planning ahead, the smart positioning of the Zealot on the hold position, by the way. You have to hold position of the Zealot if you're going to do this. Because hold position means the Zealot won't run out of the corridor and get surrounded. You have to press hold position of the Zealot and make sure that you don't move it away. So yeah, the smart positioning of the Zealot, the Zerglings all clumped up here, and the Orbital Strikes. The Orbital Strikes nominally aren't one of the strongest top parts of the game. In fact, unless you have the Archon dudes of the 3rd Prestige. The Orbital Strike here, which obviously just shoots 5 pieces of lasers at the enemy. It does, I think, like 50 damage on 100 versus armored, but It is still one of the weakest top parts of the game, but because I used it smartly, it was able to take out the entire wave with 60% of its power left to spare. And that is, again, the power of planning and knowing what to do. So now, we're gonna move into the rocks to take them out as I saturate this this geyser. I am trying to burst down these rocks, and as I send this probe to start first a pylon and a Twilight Council, I'm not worried that I'm supply blocked at 31 because my plan is to build the Nexus anyway once this goes down. In fact, I even add a forge so I can start getting upgrades. And then once that pylon completes, I guess I'll add another Dragoon to help burst down these rocks. And then that's when I send the worker. I think that's when I send the worker. Yeah, it's on the way to build my expansion. Building your expansion as early as possible is one of the important things that you have to internalize. So the things you have to internalize: number one, build stuff whenever you have money to build stuff. Number two, get your economy rolling as fast as possible, and by that I mean get your primary structure in place with your expansion, and then saturate your expansion. I see a lot of players making this mistake of having the Nexus in place. It's already built. It was built on time, but the issue was they weren't able to saturate. Now, I've had this happen to myself as well, but that was because I was busy either microing a fight up front, trying not to die to mutators, and that's not an excuse. That's not an excuse. Like, you need to remember to keep making workers, as do I. And it's a skill that everyone could use, but like, that's the important thing. You have to get your economy rolling. Once this completes, you have to keep making workers until you have full saturation of these metal patches and these gas geysers. Very important indeed. So now you can see that my forge is complete and I start +1 immediately. Again, a lot of players I see, especially like Raynor players, really going for that double engineering bay, but unless you start double upgrades already from this double engineering base and continue double upgrades, they're kind of wasted money. I don't like going for double upgrades for most commanders in this game, but the ones that I do tend to have mineral heavy forces because upgrades are pretty gas intensive. This one costs 100 gas, and I think it goes up to 150 and then goes up to 200 or something like that. That's a lot of gas to invest, and I prefer generally to have that gas invest in units rather than upgrades, because in co-op, more units gives you a better chance of scaling to the point where you have critical mass. Critical mass is important in co-op because Amon sends free armies. The fundamental difference between 1v1 fights and co-op fights is that in 1v1, the opponent gets the same resources as you do, so they can build right about the same value of army as you do, so that when you fight, the important thing in 1v1 fights is trading more efficiently than your opponent, given equal economies. If you trade more efficiently, you will have more in the tank left for future fights, assuming, again, that you have equal economies. But this is co-op where Amon's forces are literally free. Now you have to internalize that. Amon's forces are literally free. That means it doesn't matter how badly he trades. As long as he does trade with you, he is at an advantage because he can scale up infinitely because he has free units. Whereas co-op players only have 2 bases to work with, so they have to make the absolute most out of their forces. And since Artanis doesn't have a hero unit, what will anchor his forces is his forces themselves. So the main focus for Artanis here is to get an army, a solid army, as quickly as he can, and try to reach that critical mass of dragoons, so that once you engage, at most you take like 5 losses per fight. Now that is still technically trading, but that is so efficient. You can replace that loss so easily that it might as well not have been a trade at all. That's the essential thing here. You have to fight, not looking to trade with Amon, but you have to absorb his forces, taking as minimal loss as possible. That is important. If you're a 1v1 player, you have to shift away from this paradigm in 1v1 that you have to trade more efficiently. Yeah, in co-op, you can't trade at all. You have to fight as if this is a campaign mission where you're trying to snowball to a large army and lose as few as possible while doing it. And this is why co-op players have have hero units and top bars. These will help your forces not take any losses while you're still building up. That is the important thing. And you can see I'm prioritizing attack upgrades because the essence behind not trading with Amon is you kill Amon's forces before he kills you. That's the reason why I like focusing on attack upgrades for most commanders. You want to kill Amon's forces before he kills yours. Next attack wave is on the way. Now you can see I have the same setup as before. 2 Zealots hold position up front and Dragoons right behind them. Because this is Devouring Scourge, this is the composition with a lot of Zerglings, but they will transition to Mass Air later on. So they will just kind of, for now at least, the Zerglings, the Massive Zerglings will wash up in front again, and I'll be able to take that out with Orbital Strike. And they'll have like 3 Mutalisks, but have Dragoons in place, and they still have 3 Orbital Strikes to finish off whatever Mutalisks they have. So let's see how this plays out. You can see I'm making the wall even deeper. I'm making the corridor even deeper by adding extra pylons, extra gateways, just in case I have to fall back a little bit. You can see that there are the wave is semi-split. The second attack wave is the second prong of the attack wave is behind the first, so I can't use all my Orbital Strikes right away. So I patiently wait for both attack waves to show up, and then I slowly take them out using Orbital Strike. You can see that Orbital Strike hit a lot of Zerglings and the Mutalisk. That does tremendous damage. And I wait for the next set of Zerglings to come in before I launch the next one, so that it'll hit as many units as possible. You can see that second Orbital Strike destroyed the Mutalisk as well as a bunch of Zerglings. And that third one destroyed the last Mutalisk and more Zerglings. I have 2 left over. One will shut this down, and the other one will finish off the 2 remaining Zerglings. So you can see I once again took 0 losses. It's important, guys. If you're low level Artanis, you have to use your top bars to ensure that you take 0 losses in early fights, because you need to scale up. Once you start trading with Amon, you're losing already. You cannot trade with Amon. You have to scale up continuously. If you lose 1 or 2 forces, that's replaceable. But if you lose half your army in a fight, Amon's already winning. That's what he wants. You cannot trade with Amon. You have to scale up and get that critical mass as soon as possible. Because once you have the critical mass, you can actually just barrel through the map. Well, not with these, but with more effectiveness than you otherwise normally would. Next attack wave, by the way, will be at 8 minutes. You can see I do still have constant weapon production. Remember what I said, guys. Again, concept number 1: build stuff whenever you have money to build stuff. And number 2, continue making workers until you have a good saturation. You see right now, I do have a good saturation, but I still haven't taken my gas. The reason for that is because I don't really need a lot of gas, but I'll take it anyway. But again, Artanis doesn't need a lot of gas for mass Dragoons. I'm just getting that last gas really late so that I have money for upgrades, but really I didn't really need to take that. So you can see I'm just continuously building workers. And I have 3 more gateways on the way. So one of Artanis' upgrades later on is the superior warp gates, which allow his warp gates to hold on to extra charges. I would say that's only a crutch for newer players who can't really macro properly. But if you want to be better Artanis, you have to make sure that the superior warp gates aren't really a factor here. That you're really just making stuff out of warp gates as if you don't have extra charges. Because once you... The reason why waiting for the extra charges is bad is because it violates the first concept. And the first concept is whenever you have money to build stuff, build stuff. And if you have money to warp in 2 Dragoons, once it has 2 charges, you should have made the first Dragoon earlier, so that you will have that firepower on the field ready to go, instead of waiting on the second one. And by the way, that 8-minute fight, you can see that I once again conserved my orbital strikes to only hit when I had when I had the means to hit, or when I had the necessity, the need to hit. I'll warp in a few more Dragoons. Oh wait, actually I don't, because I'm supply blocked. You can see that I was supposed to warp in Dragoons, but I was supply blocked, so I couldn't actually do it. But instead, I just activate the shield overcharge so that my Dragoons will not trade. Again, the concept is you can't trade with Amon. You have to keep ramping up. And because of that concept, I had to use shield overcharge just so I wouldn't lose forces. Oh, do I have this lost tab here?
That's just the first of many.
Yes, lost. I've lost 4 Zealots in total. Resource for her. That's 4 Zealots. I haven't lost a single Dragoon yet, and that's important. You have to continuously mass up and not lose units until you get that critical mass where you can start absorbing like 5 Dragoons or so per fight, and immediately replenish them and continue the push. I am starting to, you can see that I am starting to make these forward pylons. At level 15 Artanis, you don't really need a lot of these, but I need the pylons for supply, because yeah, I'm not insta-maxed, but earlier on, yeah, you will need these pylons as a staging area for your forces. I can of course make in the power field, but like having extra pylons will allow you to warp in forces anywhere for when your power field is on cooldown. You can see I'm just ramping up. I have 8 gateways right now. 9 actually. I have 9 gateways right now. And that allows me to really mass produce the Dragoons whenever I have charges. Oh wait, yeah, I have 8, yeah, you can see I have 8 warp gates and 1 robo. Oh, I thought I overmade. Once again, just using the orbital strikes to make the playing field advantageous for me. You don't want an even playing field with Amon, because with an even playing field, Amon's forces are free, so he has the advantage. If you want the advantage versus Amon, you want to have a favorable engagement. And by that, you see what I'm doing is, instead of charging in, a lot of players make this mistake, that you just charge it with your forces and hope for the best. What I did differently here is, instead of charging in, I shot once at this roach. It took about 98 damage. I shot it once, and what that did is that aggroed this Mutalisk, these 2 Hydralisks, and these 2 Zerglings to move forward. The important thing is, you aggroed 6 units to go forward, not their whole army. If your whole army if their whole army went forward, this strategy is useless because you'll fight them anyway. But what I did is that I'm gonna chip away at these forces because my army isn't big enough. I'm only at 111 supply, and like half of that is in workers. So to gain an advantage, to be able to scale up versus Amon, the fights I take, and I need to take the fights constantly because I'm solo. But the fights you need to take as low level Artanis need to be with always a vastly superior army. I have how many Dragoons? That's 8 by 4, 32. I have 32 Dragoons. If my 32 Dragoons engage the Sword Host, Lurker, Hybrid, Carrier, not Carrier, Dude Lord, Hybrid, and Spinecrawler back here, they'll lose. And even if they don't, they'll trade very inefficiently. And you lose a lot of forces that you've been building up all game. Instead, what I did was, I started slowly chipping away at them. This is the key. Slowly chip away. You shoot one of their forces and then pull back. They will try to go for you. So what you want to do is pull back. Make sure you're not in aggro range of any of their other forces. Once you've pulled a little chunk of them, then you fight. I lost 1 Dragoon in that fight. They lost 6 units. That is an extremely favorable trade for me. So even though I did lose forces there, that is, I would say, semi-acceptable. Because in the end, it's one unit for 6. So and two mutilisks, so that's very advantageous for me. You see, by the way, I'm already getting +3. That is, I think, one of the important things. If you're gonna get upgrades this game, you have to get them like continuously, because yeah, you want your force to kill the opponents before they kill you. So that's why I'm focusing really hard on offense. You can see I drew in about how many more? I think 7 more Zerglings, but I shot 2 down right away. 7 more Zerglings, that's pretty good. 7 Zerglings, 2 Mutilisks, 1 Hydralisk. So how many forces do I lose here? I have 31, I think. I still have 31 Dragoons. You see I'm kiting back. I lose 1 Dragoon. 1 Dragoon traded away for 7 Zerglings, 2 Mutilisks, and 1 Hydralisk. That is still very, very efficient. And that's how you scale up. You continuously fight, but you're taking like 1 or 2 losses at a time. That is replaceable. That is acceptable. As long as you macro, you can see I'm kind of slipping up on my macro. I have 800 minerals, and I haven't been making forces behind it. I have the charges available, which is unfortunate. Okay, so I siege this observer up here. When you siege observers, you have to make sure that the enemies can't shoot you back. If they can shoot you back, this thing will die right away and you have to rebuild it. So I sieged it in a place where I don't see any overseers or spore crawlers, but I can see what they have cloaked. So this spot right near this building over here is good, because you can see their cloaked units, but they can't see yours. Now you can see this time I've aggroed an Ultralisk, a Mutalisk, and a Corruptor, and a Hydralisk. That's 4 of their dudes. So how many do I have to fight? I'm still at 30 Dragoons. I warp in about 4 more. Wait, I warp in 6 more, I think. Warp in 6 more. So now I'm at 35 Dragoons. You see this time, I'm starting to hit that critical mass. I'm starting to get closer. I don't have it yet, but I'm getting closer. You'll know you've reached critical mass, so you can just walk into their base, not have to pull back, and you can just punch through with minimal losses. I'm approaching that, but not quite yet. I still have to take out their Ultralisk, their Mutalisk, and their Hydralisk. And this time, I lost 0. I started with 35, I ended with 35. And that's good. That is the kind of engagements you want to take. You don't want to trade you don't want to trade as much as possible. But if you lose 1 or 2, that's fine. But once you start getting to the point where you're not losing force anymore, that's when you've reached critical mass.
Soon. That's not good.
You see I'm approaching +3. I am starting to get that force I need. You can see I'm starting to engage without actually losing forces. I'm adding more pylons here. You see, that's another Dragoon loss, but I have made so many more. And they have lost so much more. That second one I've lost in that fight alone. You can see I'm starting to trade with Amon, which I mentioned, and I'm not changing that, is not what you want. You don't want to trade with Amon. But if you want to trade, it has to be with a lot of his forces for very few of your own. That is the concept here. Pick and choose your fights. That is the lesson for this week. You cannot engage full on with Amon with an army that's below 120 supply. But once you get over that hump, once you get critical mass, that's when you can start just attacking. You can see I am just attacking over here. That 14-minute wave heading toward here. You can see this Dragoon was far forward. I tried to pull it back, but not in time. I lost my Dragoon, which is unfortunate. But I did succeed in drawing out their forces. My goal in putting that Dragoon forward is not to kill this entire force, but merely to drag them into my main Dragoon ball. You can see the dynamic here. If I just attack moves to this front, my forces will come in single file, and Amon's forces, their entire force, is the better position. They can shoot down my Dragoons as they arrive, which will result in a this favorable, in an unfavorable engagement. So what I did instead is I chunked off a few dragoons, shot them, and then once they tried to attack, I pulled back and I baited the enemy in. So instead of me ramming single file into their concave, they ram in single file. You can see here, they ram in single file to my ball of dragoons, and they are no match for that many dragoons. They have one garden, but probably not enough.
It's our job to blast them apart.
Oh, they don't have one garden. You can see on the minimap. Check out the minimap. There's one red dot approaching the allies' base. I think I see that. And I am moving still to take out this base. At 149 supply, that's good to go, I would say. But I still need to defend my allies' base from whatever it is that Amon's going to come with. Once again, I siege and observe forward. You can see I'm trying to warp in a bunch of dragoons over here, taking whatever they have. I'm just trying to warp in whatever I have. I use all those to take out those two Beetalisks. Okay, this is an unfavorable engagement for me. I'm gonna lose a lot. So what I do is you can see that once these true dragoons are this one has 2 health, I pull it back so that the goal of pulling this back, of microing, is to force the enemy forces to attack a different force, and then get this guy back in front so he can shoot. So basically the concept behind my micro is make the enemy shoot different targets so that none of them die, or none of my forces die, but all the enemy gets wiped out because all my dragoons are shooting stuff that can't pull back. You can see I do take this out with literally 0 losses because once this dragoon was low, I pulled it back and sent it back in front just to change the target of the enemy. And once the enemy's target changed, it has to whittle down another full health dragoon, and then pull that one back, and now the enemy has basically he has to kill all my forces to get in the ground. But while that's happening, my force are continuously shooting, and that led to them losing the fight eventually. So I am losing some stuff up here. I am still attack moving up front, but like I am winning engagements here because my force has reached that point where I can just attack move in. You can see even though I have reached that point, I'm still trying to aggro them. You can see these Hydralisks aren't fighting. This beast isn't fighting. This Aberration isn't fighting. This Lurker isn't fighting. So I only have to fight this force instead of this whole thing, and that is so much of a better engagement for me instead of fighting this whole thing. That's why I'm still trying to pull back. You can see I even baited out a Disabling Cloud from a Viper. That's good. It'll have less energy for future Disabling Clouds. You can see I am trading out here, but the trade is still favorable for me. I am pushing forward. I am making more dragoons. As I pull back again. Just so you can see that, yeah, I take this Lurker and the Spine Crawler out of action. And I start fighting like a few chunks of the force at a time. Not the whole thing. That is a lesson. Again, that is a lesson behind this game. You slowly push in, and you piece out the enemy a few at a time, not all of them all at once. But yeah, 160 supply, I would say that is definitely having reached critical mass. So I can push here, continue fighting this, and then once the attack wave is approaching me, that's when I move my forces back. Yeah, I just pull back everything. And I prepare to fight this wave up here. Yeah, I've reached the point where I can just attack move into Amon's force because I have 165 supply of dragoons. And that is when I know I've reached a big enough force to challenge Amon straight up. So I run back to the front after having taken care of that attack. And like you said, I'm starting to bank energy. That will be useful later on. The energy I banked is going to be useful later. I know what I'm saving for. The lesson with top bars, as I mentioned with Raynor, is generally you want to use top bars whenever you have them available. And only save top bars when you know what you're saving for. I know what I'm saving for. This last base is difficult to break. And yeah, I saved up for a shield overcharge so that I can continuously attack I siege this overseer here so I can see their cloaky boys.
Pirates just don't
I tried to shoot out that Viper without any success. That is unfortunate. That was just a flat out miss. That was a mistake on my part. But my army is big enough that I can afford to make mistakes. You can see they're rushing a few at a time, and they're getting shot down. They're trickling in, which is exactly what I want them to do. Once they trickle in, I will have the army advantage because all my forces are fighting, whereas theirs is only fighting like 10% at a time. Which means, yeah, it's just math. 100% is greater than 10%. So the 10% will take fewer losses because they can all shoot at the same time. And the damage up of the 10 is not enough to take out a significant portion of the 100%. And now you can see I am just powering through.
We need to get rid of
I am just powering through despite the fact that clock's ticking. And I'm just attack moving. I should actually just start a step here. I should start a step. Yeah, there we go. I should start a step so that more of my force from behind can shoot. You can see the reason why, right? Like earlier on, you can see that a lot of the dragoons at the back weren't able to shoot. They were just derping around and not really shooting anything. And not shooting anything is bad because that effectively renders that part of the force not there. They're just derping around each other, which means they might as well not be there, is what I'm saying. When you start a step the forces forward, the backlight can shoot, and that magnifies the damage output that you deal. That's why I start a step forward, but not too heavily, just enough that the backlight can shoot.
Enemy forces detected. Prepare our defense.
You can see the next attack wave is on the way. I chunk off the backline
that's what I like.
so that they can move forward, but turns out it wasn't necessary. I just needed to shoot down. I just need to focus down the void shards. And now I can have the rest of my forces
Stretch, commanders.
run back to the front to prepare to fight. You can see I'm just taking this fight head on. Yeah, I have reached the point where I can just engage straight up. You can see I even use that orbital strike to take out like 5 or so guard. That's very favorable. That's a very good orbital strike if I say so myself. I do like that orbital strike a lot. So now, most players would probably try to move in here, and that's fine. I would choose to move up here so that I can cut off the attack waves much earlier. That is also an option you can take. I try to you see, even though I do have critical mass, I'm still doing that try to get a favorable engagement thing. I shoot some stuff down here. A few at a time would chunk off, and this time I believe I lose 0 units, and then my whole force still intact. I shoot again. I see that nothing's starting to come, so now I just attack me with the rest of my force in. They'll be able to fight. Yeah, they're streaming in. They're not even killing stuff anymore. They are doing shield damage, but like not enough. I'm still at 100. I'm basically maxed out at this point. I see just another. I see an observer there, and I have another observer on the way. It's over here. It's on the way. My dragoons are going forward. We'll start to take this engagement. We will start fighting our way up that ramp. See, yeah, I just drop it. I just dropped the shield overcharge so that I can just attack, move in, just fight normally. You see, I'm not losing anything yet. They're losing chunks and chunks of their army. This is how you really win with a macro-based level of commander. Choose your fights and like mass up until you have critical mass. And once you have critical mass of co-op units, you will actually be pretty effective. You can see I got a little too aggressive there and lost a bunch because I momentarily forgot that Artanis is in fact still Artanis, and I lost a bunch of supply, like 25 supply. I think I lost like 12 dragoons. That's a lot, but since I've been taking good fights all throughout the game, I managed to max out while still having a decent bank, and that allows me to instantly max when I had the capability. I walk back here. I shoot these guys down. Again, those 4 Dragoons, I move them back. I shoot all these down. That's a lot of Guardians. That was an amazing orbital strike. I took out like 7 Guardians at once. That was incredible. My goodness, I really like that. So now I resume the push. By the way, there's still I do see that there's still a dot heading in, but now is a time when you realize that Artanis is Artanis. Even if you do get a maxed out army that can push through whatever Amon has, he's still pretty much immobile. If you don't have that Nexus Legate Prestige, his whole army is still super duper immobile. So you have to make a conscious decision here. If you run back to intercept this force, you have to account for the travel time. That's about a minute back, another minute going forward, and by then the next attack will be ready. So I made the decision that instead of going back to defend, I'll just try to push through and win. And these pylons here will have to they will have to tank whatever the enemy has at that stage as I move forward and try to secure the win. So I'm still trying to take semi-decent engagements. I am losing like more stuff now. Okay, it turns out those were just Scourge. Normally I'd be worried about Scourge, but like in this map and with the Protoss ally, the Scourge won't do anything. They'll just chill out in that base and not really do anything. So it turns out that I made the correct decision after all. I move these Dragoons forward. I warp in some more. As I still am close to max. I see the Observer. I'm holding out and using the overcharge because I know that in the back there's still a Brutalisk, a Leviathan, and another Brutalisk over here, and a Swarm Host. So I'm saving my my shield overcharge to the last moment when I really need it. But again, if I didn't know what I was saving for, I would just use it right away. Okay, so I've already made the decision that I'm not gonna run back to defend, and that whatever I have will have to do. Okay, so now you can see I max out and then I activate shield overcharge because I am in that zone where I'm gonna fight the Leviathan and the Brutalisk. And you can see that I traded like 3 Dragoons for the Brutalisk. It's not a super favorable engagement, but it will do because I maxed out and have a bank behind it.
I see your reputations are well earned.
So now you can see I've made the decision that I probably can't beat this Leviathan with 2000 health. So instead, I just right-click the shard and then moved on to the next one because the attack wave is coming. It's on the way, and it can't take too long. And there's like a minute left, so what I have to do is just go for the win. It's basically winning time, is what I recognized. The time is red, my army's dwindling, the attack wave's coming, so it's now or never, basically. So I just decided to right-click the shard, get out, and then charge the other one and give it all I have. Because that's really my only chance of winning. I still Stutter Step to do whatever damage I can, took out that Lurker that was doing splash damage, and now I just right-click the shard, and it turns out that the Dragoons I had, that I've been building up all this game, was enough. Remember guys, you see the big army here charging through, but you cannot fall for the trap of just seeing that large army attack moving and thinking, oh, Artanis just attack move. If you're level 1, you cannot fight that way. You have to watch the whole game to see what I've been doing all game to get myself that army. Continuous unit production, picking good fights, and making sure to get your economy up and rolling. The 3 things. Make it when you can make units, get your economy rolling as early as possible, take your base and saturate that base as early as you can, and pick and choose your fights so that you lose as few units as possible while chipping away at whatever enemy has in their base. And once you have that 120 supply, you can kind of move forward, but still take good engagements when you can. The concept of what I did when attacking Amon space is a few at a time. Chunk off a few at a time. I move in a few Dragoons, aggro a little force, and pull them back. So that imagine Amon's force as 10 fingers. I aggro two of them to fight, and I kill them off without losing anything. So now Amon only has 8 fingers left. I aggro 3 this time. I kill that off, so he only has five fingers left. I aggro off 2 more, so he has 3 left. And once he only has 3 left, I can just charge him with the rest of my force and wipe that out. That is the concept behind picking good engagements. Like, chunk off a few at a time, because Amon doesn't F2. And that is to his detriment. If he F2'd at the start of the game, he would win every time. But since he doesn't, what you can do is chunk off a piece of his army at a time, and then just keep chunking away until he runs out of forces, and you're able to march in with your army and whatnot. And I hope you enjoyed that. Thank you for watching. If you have an idea for it, also please leave that in a comment. I will see you next time.